two top 25 in-state prospects during the last week. So I want to ask you a little bit about them. And let's start with the big one, Kaden Feagin. Illinois wanted to start the class of 2023 with kind of a bang here. And Kaden Feagin certainly is a headliner for the in-state program, isn't he?
Yeah. When they started going after in-state recruits, I thought that I loved the effort. And I thought that they would have some success. I thought that they would maybe have to go kind of dig out some guys. I didn't know that they were going to just come in and start winning battles like Jared Beatty and then like Caden in this class. I mean, that's a really good win when you look at the schools that were in on him and also the time period to get him in the class as your first guy. That's huge. And so, and I think I mentioned in the article that I posted on Hayden that you just want to add size, athleticism, versatility to the roster. You're doing it big time with a kid like that. He was at the UC report camp last year in St. Louis. I saw him there, every bit of what his listed size is, and ran a 40 and tested. We watched him run around those drills like a much, much smaller guy. I think they got to figure out, I think, exactly what they want to do with him. Sounds like tailback is the plan, and that's what he wants to be. But a whole lot of physical ability there.
Yeah, I want to ask you, he's a 4-star in the composite. We have him as the highest possible 3-star, plays for a small program in Illinois. Right now, he had an ankle injury that bothered him throughout most of the year. But what's your evaluation? What did you see in that camp? What did you see on film?
Yeah, I think in the camp, and he was doing running back stuff. And then on film, he was doing, all kinds of stuff. He was playing special teams. And I think some schools lean defense with him. Certainly see why that would be the case. It reminds me of some of the guys that we covered in the past a little bit. Jordan Anderson comes to mind. Austin Brown was a guy who played all over the field, small school, whose schools were kind of split on what exactly do we do with this guy. I think that's what kept us from going all the way in with Caden as a 4-star, was just figuring out exactly where he projected and then getting comfortable with the level of competition that he played at. I think what we would like to see from him this season, he's the biggest, fastest, best player on the field at all times. Now the film has been good. Now let's see it be completely dominant to the level that we think he should, because he's that much more talented than a lot of the competition that he plays.
Listen, I know Derrick Henry in the NFL is excelling as a big back, but there's not that many big backs. I know Brett Bielema's got a history, but not many guys as big as Jordan Anderson and, Kaden Feagin now. So can you see him succeeding at the Big Ten as a running back?
Yeah, I think we've seen it a little bit here and there. I think the big back, maybe it's Derrick Henry kind of ushering this back into vogue, but even seeing Purdue recently run out a guy like Xander Horvath, who nobody really recruited as a tailback. You see guys like that. And so I think when you have guys who are that big, they have to be on the dynamic side. And Caden has dynamic athletic tools. He has home run hitting speed at that size. He's not just I think the days of the big, I'm just going to kind of plow through everybody up the middle, those days are gone. But if you have a big guy who has speed like a little guy, which Caden does, then I think that there's room for him to play tailback.
I feel like you look at him and he's usually the guy you want playing on the edge, right? This kind of 3-4 outside linebacker. That's why I can understand why a lot of these schools had interest in him. So if the running back thing doesn't work out, what do you think of him as a prospect on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, he's an interesting projection over there because of the size and speed and everything that he brings to the table. Like you said, those are the types of athletes that go over there and succeed. Although there's less evidence on that side of the ball. When you watch his film, it's much easier to evaluate him as an offensive guy because you see him more, even on special teams when he's returning kicks. That's really offensive film. You don't see as much of him at, shedding blocks, actually rushing the passer. You don't see him doing those things. So it would be much more projectional on the defensive side of the ball. But we've seen this. Michigan State actually recruited Le'Veon Bell at first as a linebacker. There was some thought, even when he got into camp, still some people were saying, well, they'll probably move him after the first week, right? There's no way he's going to stick as a running back. So we've seen this. I've seen this story enough times to right now not doubt Caden as a running back.
And as you said, get Jordan Anderson, Kaden Feagin, get those kind of athletes, size in your program. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You talked about the recruiting aspect of this. What do you think it does mean, or how much does it matter to get a guy like Kaden Feagin, a composite 4-star guy, is the first guy in this class?
Yeah, I actually think, go back and forth about how much momentum is a real thing in recruiting. I've settled in on that. It matters. I do think that it does. And you see it happening here. You get him, now you get a second commit. You got some other guys that I think are thinking about it. And it's like I said, it's not just some dude that had Illinois was his only offer, or some sleeper they uncovered who jumped on the offer right away. This was a guy they had to work for, who really felt good about the direction of this program, who could have gone a lot of other places, who decided that's where he wanted to be, and decided that was where he wanted to be in March. So I think other recruits are going to see that. I think so. I do think that it matters to an extent, but at the end of the day, it's almost, I feel like we are taking away from the staff by saying, well, they got Caden, now it's going to lead other. They're doing the work. And when you see how many in-state guys are taking visits, how many of those guys have set officials already, I think that that tells you what kind of work they've been doing on the trail.